All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to On the Edge of Entertainment, where I invite my friends, my fellow entertainer friends from Las Vegas and from around the globe to discuss what's going on in their lives and in showbiz and to help give tips. I have a website called yobizshowbiz.com. So if you're interested in getting into entertainment, come and visit me over there. I've got 5 amazing products. And in the meantime, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine that originally lived in Las Vegas, now lives in Los Angeles. And he is an amazing dancer, choreographer, producer, and director. So, welcome, Gary Thomas, everyone.
Hello, Cody. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So good to see you.
You too. And congrats on this new adventure in your life. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're on. And we have so much to talk about. I mean, we had originally met back when we were both doing Legends in Concert, and you were not only a dancer, but you were a choreographer in the show. And during that time, that you had in Las Vegas, you had an extremely successful career as a dancer, and you were also choreographing. Tell me about some of that. Listen, I've got this. This is like how many shows he's done. Oh, can you see it? There's so many that he had to write them in tiny print. It probably just came out that way on my printer, but no, I mean, you've done so many shows. It's incredible. And of course, they're all top quality, high quality, amazing shows in Las Vegas.
Well, I feel really blessed when I got to Vegas. I feel like I had known one of the choreographers from Legends because I was in a show that she choreographed that was in Shanghai. So when I'd spent a year there, when that show was coming to an end, she had contacted me and said, "What are you doing afterwards?" And I said, "I'm going to go to LA for a little bit." She goes, "Well, if you come to Vegas, I'll get you a private audition for Legends in Concert." So I
Nice.
did that. I got the gig, but I still had to wait like 3 months till one of the male dancers' contracts was over
Mm-hmm.
because I was taking his spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a couple showcases, met some other choreographers and other dancers, and they kind of plugged me into like, go here, audition for this, go do this show over here. Here's a corporate event, audition for that. I felt like, and I still feel like the entertainment family in Vegas is very strong. Like once you
Yeah.
plug in, people really help you, people really push you. You have to still do the work yourself, but people will definitely lead you to the right doors and the right situations if you're open to it. So
Well, it is it's kind of like a small community of people. And we continually get jobs over and over and cross paths over and over. So it's nice to be friendly. It's nice to have friends. But honestly, I feel like those kind of perks only happen for people that are talented and have something to offer. Because if you come to town and you're all that, everybody's going to be like, hey, it's going to make them look better to say, hey, you should get this guy,
true,
so.
absolutely. But I also think I think there's two sides to that. There's the talent side, which you understand, but then you also have to pick up the ball at some point yourself and run with it. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
if you're calling me and saying, "Gary, go here, Gary, go there." If I'm late or if I don't show up or if I get the gig, whatever it is, you got to follow through on your end as
Hmm.
well so that people don't think you're a big flake.
Yeah, that's a really good tip for upcoming entertainers for sure, and even some established ones, right? Because there's a lot of mistakes that are made, and you can burn bridges pretty quick in the entertainment business because, again, everybody knows each other, and you keep crossing paths. So.
Oh yeah, especially in Las Vegas. And I think if you start making mistakes and not following through, that word starts to spread. So when your name does come up, somebody might go, "Oh yeah, that person's really talented, but they're
Yes.
late to every rehearsal or they're late to the gig or they kind of mark everything during the performance." You know what I mean? So like I said, you got to follow through on both sides of that. So I felt very blessed when I got there to just get plugged in. And I also don't want to disappoint people. So if you're helping me out, I want to do the best I can. I don't want you to like ever think to yourself, I should have never recommended him for this gig, or you know what I mean, or helped him out. So
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're anything like me, when I came to Vegas, I thought it was such an amazing thing to actually get in a show. And I thought,
oh
I'm going to
yeah.
do everything I can to make this work. This is amazing. I get to be on stage in front of thousands of people every single night. So that's a gift. And you do have to kind of cherish it.
Well, and I felt that too, because I think, you see people auditioning, or you go to take a dance class during the day and you see new dancers have come to town. So I think you probably feel the same way I do. It's not, your slot is not guaranteed.
Mm-mm.
You have to keep working to hold on to it. Whether maintaining how you look or your performance level or whatever, you have to maintain that. Otherwise, somebody will eventually step in and go, okay, I'm going to take your slot now.
Yeah. It looks like, not only did you accomplish, being in a lot of shows, and I mean, how many shows were you in?
In Vegas, I did Legends for 4 contracts, and each contract is 1 year. I actually started out in the Kerr show. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know about that. Okay. So I had auditioned for Legends. I got Legends, but I still had like 3 months until the guy who I was going to replace, until his contract was up. So another choreographer had sent me over to audition for the Kerr show because they needed a dancer. So I got that. So I
Hmm.
started doing that show. That's when Debbie Reynolds owned the hotel and the casino. So
Mm.
she would do her show first, and then Kenny Kerr would go on second. So one of the
Oh yeah.
coolest parts was when her show was over, she would put on a really cute robe, this long robe, and come down with a cocktail, and she would hang out in the male dancers' dressing room, and she would be telling us stories about filming and dancing, and Gene Kelly and everybody she worked with. And there were nights I kind of didn't want to go on stage and dance. I just wanted to sit in the back and
Oh my
listen to her
gosh.
tell these stories, because it was just unbelievable to hear it directly from her. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, Vegas is an amazing place for that, like having opportunities to meet amazing people and learn about how it all started in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. And people who were there for all of it, especially people that were able to go from the Hollywood screen and then come to Vegas and be a live performer and stuff. So they had just such great stories to tell. So I did the Kenny Kerr thing for a few months, and then I put in my notice when it was time to go into Legends full time.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
I stayed with the show for so long because I mean, acts change.
Mm-hmm.
So every few months we got new material as dancers. That's great. That energizes you, makes your mind work again. You can't be on autopilot because all this, the show is now rearranged, and there's 2 new acts and different costume changes and presets and all of that kind of stuff. So that kept me on. If it was a show that never changed, I probably could have done it for about a year and a half, and then I would have had to bounce and say bye.
Yeah, I think that show is a musician or entertainer's dream because obviously most shows last and last and last. Hopefully, if it's a great show, it'll be going for 8, 10, 12 years.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it remains the same. So I know that's hard for dancers for
Yeah,
sure and
yeah,
musicians, but
yeah.
it's also hard to make the changes all the time. But like you say, as a dancer, it kept you on your toes. It kept you inventive. And is that how you started getting into choreography?
I had dabbled with choreography throughout my entire career, usually some wherever I was, whether I was in Chicago or New York or Orlando or even another country. I'd usually get involved somehow in either teaching at different studios, or I would get involved in the nightclub scene to some extent. And I would put together different showcases with different entertainers where I could just go in, and we could all just kind of get crazy and do our own thing without too many restrictions and all of that kind of stuff in that nightclub environment. And it gave me a chance to really
Mm.
experiment with styles and music and just be able to do what I wanted and pick the people that I wanted. So that's kind of where it started for me.
Mm. And then it just caught on, and did you start doing a lot of corporate work and
Yes,
working
I
for
think
shows?
the connections that I made as a dancer in Vegas then started to help me transition into the choreography and production end of things. And what happened one night, I was on stage at Legends, and it was the first time in my entire career that I was performing, but in my head, I was like, oh, I need to stop at the store on the way home and I need to get some groceries. And tomorrow I've got to work out and I've got to do this, that errand and that errand. And it was the first time I noticed that I was not 100% in it like I used to be. And I
Mm.
felt this very strong instinctual urge that it was time to start shifting the career into
Mm.
the production side of things. I wanted to phase out of performing and dancing because a dancer's career is not forever.
That's not, yeah.
Singers are different, acting, that all of that kind of stuff is a different thing, but dancers definitely have a shelf life to them. And I wanted to phase out of dancing while people still wanted me, while I was still working, while the phone was still ringing. I didn't have to audition for anything anymore in Vegas. Usually somebody would call me up, do you want to do my showcase? Can you do this corporate event coming up? That felt really good. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to get to that place where people are like cutting me as soon as I walk through the door because you just don't have it anymore. And I've seen that with dancers. I saw that in my 20s with dancers that technically were phenomenal, but they didn't have the adrenaline or the energy or the speed or whatever it was. It just wasn't there anymore. So that's when I started really putting myself out there and working on the choreography stuff. And a lot of that transitioned into the corporate events that, I mean, about too. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vegas is huge on corporate events, and we have an opportunity to not only work in the live stage shows, but put on live stage shows for these conferences. And we've all been doing them for years, and they've really been keeping us going. It's good money, and uh, and it just makes Vegas fun and different all the time.
it does. And it's also exciting and interesting because you have a very short window usually to put together a show. I mean, you might talk about it with, like, I've done events for General Motors and Sprint. So you might be talking to them a few months out about concepts and music ideas or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes time to create the show, you get your cast together. And a lot of times it's maybe 6, 7 days in the studio. You learn a whole show, you tech it. On the 8th day, you perform it. Everyone gets a check and goes home. Like, it's a lot of work condensed into a short period of time, which is
Yeah.
probably why the money is usually really good for it too. So
Yeah, yeah, it needs to be. But, I find that performers and dancers in Vegas are some of the best that you can find, and the most expensive. Because when I try to take my show on the road, it ends up being a lot more expensive than if you had people locally in different cities, which I do also. But going back to the whole thing about performers kind of losing their oomph, at a certain point. I had a producer that basically had all 20, 21, 22-year-old dancers. And at the time, I was the same age. And I remember him telling me that I was too old. And this was the first show I did in Las Vegas. He thought I was old. And I'll never forget that. But it was just kind of like, what? I'm at the beginning of my life, and I'm washed up already. Maybe that's what pushed me to keep going all these years. But yeah, it's Vegas is interesting. But I think that when you're young and fresh, you're so excited and you're so willing, and you do what everybody needs you to do, and you show up and you do it. But after a while, dancers get tired in Vegas because they are working all the time. It's not like, oh, you're going to do a tour, a Janet Jackson tour, and it's only going to be, 6 weeks at a time, and you get
right.
breaks. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and then on top of that too, even before I got to Vegas, I had done a show for a year in China. I've done a lot of musical theater kind of scattered throughout my career in different places around the States. I did, the international cruise ship thing I got to perform on. Disney World in Florida, I got to dance at. And like I said, I had just started to get to that point, and I think it would have happened whether I was in Vegas or performing anywhere else. The rehearsals were starting to get on my nerves. The costume changes were starting to get on my nerves. Like I also didn't want to be that bitter performer, because we've worked with those people too that have reached that point where the magic for them is gone and they hate what they do now.
Yeah.
And that energy filters out to everybody around them and to the cast. So I didn't want to become that either. I didn't want to become that person coming in and, slamming down my dance bag and bitching about the show and that we had to do a rehearsal and my knee hurts or this bothers me or that. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be any of that. So,
well, I really respect that, because I feel like oftentimes entertainers don't know what to do after, they're an entertainer. And so I really respect that you were just thinking ahead, and you just thought, what, let me end this while it's good and begin something new. And also, you probably knew you had a lot of talent to do the directing and the choreography and everything. It was just in you. I'm sure it's not in everybody.
I was trying to create shows when I was 5 years old, like rearranging my basement and trying to do stuff in the garage and with the ladders and whatever was around that I could form into a set. I was always supposed to be in entertainment. I mean, I knew that from like a little kid, like 3 or 4 years old. If there was anything to do with dancing or singing going on in the television, even though I didn't know the words for it really, that I was mesmerized by, and that's what I wanted to do. So production is always going on in my head. So it was a natural movement for me to go from one to the other. And it felt really good. Like everything felt like it was time, like follow your gut, follow your instinct. It's time to move from this space into this new space over here. So,
and so shortly after that, so you had this incredible, lucrative career in Las Vegas, and then you decided to relocate to Los Angeles, which is a completely different animal. I know that's where I came from. So it's a different thing. So tell me about all that.
Well, what's interesting is I always thought I would end up in Los Angeles as a dancer. And then because I went to, I was doing a lot of traveling and I ended up in Vegas and I got Legends, everything just kind of in Vegas, I was going to stay for maybe a year and then move to Los Angeles. But then one contract became 2 and then 3 and then 4. And then it was really time to transition into production. And that door seemed to open wide. And I was choreographing a show at the Stratosphere and doing nightclub events at Luxor. And there was all this stuff happening. I had a burlesque show at the Paris Hotel for a while. So it was just one thing after next. And it's like, well, I don't want to leave while all the work is hitting, you know what I mean? Like, but then my husband and I decided to move here after the economy crashed in Vegas and things kind of changed. But I was starting to get that feeling again, like I did as a dancer. Like I've done as much as I can do in Las Vegas, and now it's time to go somewhere else and see what happens with that. Yeah.
And I think that's great, because as human beings, if we challenge ourselves in different ways, we grow and we learn different ways to do everything. I think it makes you well-rounded as a human being. I haven't moved a lot, and I really respect those entertainers that are like, well, I was from Wisconsin and I moved everything and moved to LA. I don't feel like I really did that for the purpose of entertainment. I ended up in LA, at a young age, but I wasn't planning on doing entertainment. But I really respect that about people that just uplift their lives and go somewhere else.
Vegas was the first time in like 10 years I went from living in a hotel or some type of actors or performers house or whatever, not living out of your suitcase. Vegas was the first time in like 10 years where the suitcases went into a closet and they weren't coming out for a while. Usually like they're just stacked in a corner because you're going to use them again at some point,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, after we worked together in Vegas, I was on the road 8 months out of the year, every year for about 7 years.
Yeah, it's fun, it's exciting, but it can be draining. It's a lot to always
Hmm.
have somewhere new to go and something new to do. Or like I said, sometimes you don't even unpack your suitcase. You open it up and take out what you need, throw the dirty stuff on the floor, put that in a bag to be washed, and then you pack it all up again when you move on to your next adventure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you moved from Las Vegas, you got to Los Angeles. We're in the middle of COVID, and you have this epiphany. Tell us about this new thing that you're doing.
I had about 2 years ago had this idea for headliners to put together this like top of the line production show here in LA. And I had
Mm,
actually spoken and done a few presentations at a few venues here in Hollywood.
mm-hmm.
And then I was involved in another theater project that I was directing and choreographing, and headliners kind of got put to the back burner, and I wasn't really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as COVID went on, I started going through all these folders and ideas that I have on my desktop. And you start reading through stuff. You're like, oh, that's a crap idea. Get rid of that. That's a crap idea. Get rid of that. It's like this makes no sense at all. No one would ever watch this. Delete that. And then I got to the headliners thing, and I opened it up and I started reading through all this stuff I had put down and looking through this pitch deck that I had created. And I was like, and it felt like there's something there. So I was
Hmm.
actually going to launch it as a competition.
Hmm.
And
Ah.
then I started putting that down on paper and was like, okay, then you need some type of judges, or does the audience have a way of calling in or chat in the chat room area, voting for somebody or whatever. And that just felt like the wrong direction to go in. So I'm like, go back to your original idea, which is to find top of the line talent, put it into a show format. But instead of people driving to the venue now, they get to sit down in their living room or wherever they're at, and they get, the show streams to them now.
Mm-hmm. And I know, you're really good at what you do. So I would assume that whatever you do, you put so much into it, like it's a real show.
I did. I approached all of this from the mindset of, first of all, I can't lie, it all scared the hell out of me. When you see, when you first start thinking about it, about streaming something, and then I sit down at the desktop and you start kind of researching it a little bit, you're like, every other video is, we'll use this operating system, but stream to this platform, but then you need this, and you should have, I got on the phone with somebody in New York who does this, and she rattled off this whole list, and your microphone, and that's $350, and you need this $1,200 camera, and you need this stream deck thing over here, that's another $450 and stuff. And it was like, I'm not in a position to drop $5,000 right now to launch a show that maybe nobody wants anything to do with. So I
Mm,
I found this system called OBS. I started studying it every single day. I got up every morning. I treat it like I'm taking a class at college, and I sit
mm-hmm.
down. I open up my notebook. I take my notes. I go onto different sites and watch all these instructional videos on how to do it. I watch them over and over. Make my notes. I've typed up my own guide for it. And then I just start putting all the content into OBS, and from OBS, then I stream the show out through a different platform, any platform I want to use. But
Oh.
and then I was calling friends up, and I'm like, what are you doing today? And they're like, nothing, because it's COVID and it's a pandemic. I'm like, good. I'm sending you an email. Read the email like you don't know me or know anything about what I'm doing. Let me know that it makes sense. Hit the link. And then I started doing test runs of the show with people where, you know what I mean, doing like a Q to Q, and
Yeah.
not letting them see all the content or hear everything that I was doing. But okay, this is how the show would open. Then it cuts to me. Then it would go to this. And these are the transitions. Are you seeing
Mm.
everything? Are you hearing everything? There's all this stuff that comes up, like frames per second, or are they being dropped because the CPU in your computer is overworked?
Right? Uh, yeah, I can imagine. Oh my gosh.
And then there's always a delay, which I guess in the back of my mind, we know this, just if we've ever, if you've ever been involved with anything with TV, as it's going out, there's sometimes a 6 to 7 second delay. So I started testing the show from my laptop to our flat screen, and there was sometimes like a 17-second delay. And I was like, what am I doing wrong?
Listen, it was not your fault. Here's the deal. COVID was not ready for production. I mean, when we all just said, oh my gosh, we have to do everything from home now. It's like, okay, how do we do that? Because the technology had not met us yet, with what the things that we wanted to start doing.
Right.
So I think the people that now have the skill sets with that are going to be the ones that are successful, because we don't know how long this is going to last.
No, and I think that I'm onto something too, because I've talking with different people. I'm going to do the first headliners was a couple Thursdays ago on January 21st. The next one will be March 25th. But in talking to people, there are people that said, listen, even if everybody's vaccinated and everything opens up tomorrow, I don't think I feel comfortable yet going to a theater or a showroom. I have friends that will go sit in would go to a small lounge with maybe 20 other people in the room and watch a small show, but they won't go sit in a theater with 3,000 seats, even if there's only 1,000 people spread out. They're like, I don't want to do that yet. So I think what I'm doing has a lot of longevity to it. I really do.
Yeah. And I think it's also, face it, we have all this social media stuff that's happening, and sort of, I believe that life is sort of transitioning that way, where we can enjoy things in our own home. And this has really solidified that. But, there's always reasons not to leave the house. And if I can be entertained by headliners, that's great. Or maybe I even get to be one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that's the other part about the show, is it's also seeing what talented people do and how they perform or create their number from where they're at. In my last show, I had a husband and wife duo, Mr. and Mrs. G. They're an international specialty act, and they were in a show in the Netherlands when the lockdown hit. So they still had access to a stage and proper lighting and sound and all of that kind of stuff. So they were able to perform from that space.
Yeah. So let's go back and explain that a little bit. So you've got these headliners and you're producing this show, but these people are all over the country and all over the world. Like you say, this couple is in the Netherlands. So that makes it more interesting. Go on.
Yeah, so I thought, the other side to explore from this was, how can people, even with what I'm doing, how do I turn my living room in my apartment into looking like a cool little headliner's lounge with just me and a DJ, because there's no one else here. But then even with performers, like I said, the couple from the Netherlands, they had access to a stage. This choreographer that I used, he found a space in downtown LA and took his dancers in there with them all spread out, and they did a one shot with the camera moving around all of them. So that was really cool. And then one of my singers, he put up his flat screen. He's got really cool images and disco balls on it, and he's got some soft lighting hitting him, and he's singing from his apartment, but his voice is phenomenal. His songs are they're original. So I think it just gives people, you get to see how people have to be creative in so many different ways, other than this is my song or this is my choreography. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. And, obviously, it's not the same show every week. It's different every time you do it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be every 2 to 2.5 months, because it did take a lot longer to put together. Maybe it's just because it was the first one. I also don't want to saturate people with it. It's not something right now anywhere where, oh, here's 8 episodes that you can binge, or this comes out every week for 8 weeks or something like that. I kind of want to build it like when you go to see a concert, or if you're seeing a Broadway tour that's coming through your town. It's not there all the time. So you get your tickets and you anticipate it and you look forward to it, and you kind of set your whole evening around it. So I don't care if you put on a ball gown and watch the show, or if you're just in your sweatpants with, you know, a glass of cheap wine. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do, but I want you to make it your night when you come to watch it, you know?
I think that's great. Yeah, I love that idea.
So the show actually starts out the first, I have a pre-show. The show is 8 p.m. West Coast time. At 7:30 p.m., the logo comes on, and there's a little countdown clock there counting you down into the show. And then you hear the music from my DJ. So once again, I'm approaching it from that idea that if you walked into a theater or a showroom, there'd be some type of ambiance going on. There'd be some type of soft lighting in the seating area. There would be some music going on. Sometimes maybe some performers are doing something around you and getting people hyped up. But this is that 30 minutes where you can put on the music, take a shower, get yourself a snack, get settled in. And then at 8 p.m., the virtual curtain, so to speak, goes up and it cuts to me. And then we go on and do the show.
I love it. I love it. And then you have all that time to sell it in advance, and people can get ready for it and mark it on the calendar like it's a special event. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the selling points to it is if you, and right now I don't have any plans to repeat or rerun any of the shows. So if you don't see this one, you've missed it. It's not coming back. And even if I brought back some of the same headliners, they would do something different. They wouldn't do the same thing they did the first time around. So.
Well, it's just like live entertainment. Every time you see a show, even if it is the same show, you see something different.
It's different.
I mean, I think one of my favorite things about seeing shows, like the shows that I love to go see, is knowing the performers and just kind of like keeping my eye on that one performer to see how their life is different in this particular performance, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And we both know from being in the business, I mean, sometimes it's all falling apart in the wings, you know, maybe a dancer gets hurt or a costume piece breaks and you've literally got 8 seconds to go. You're going here, you stay in the center, and then the music hits and you go and you have to make it happen. And the audience doesn't care. They're there to be, they want a show. They want it to be brilliant. So they don't, sometimes I think the camera should follow people around backstage and put that together as a show, you know?
Listen, the best reality show that anybody could ever have is to follow a Las Vegas show. And I just don't understand why it hasn't been done. I just don't understand. What are you people waiting for? But
you have to do it.
Yeah, maybe.
You're there, you do it.
Maybe. Let's hope.
Especially because you know the ins and outs, you know what it's like to be on the stage, you know what it's like to be backstage, you know the production end of it. You don't need to create the drama because the drama organically creates itself in a show, you know?
That's true. Oh my gosh, I have so many stories. Tell me about one of your stories. I know you've got to have a funny story.
I had a piece. This was at Legends, actually, and I don't know if it's funny. It's funny to me now, but in the moment it was a little freaky. But there's crossing in the back. There was a piece of scenery that didn't go out all the way, and it hit the top of my head, and it hit so hard that it knocked me onto the ground. So I got up, I heard our music starting for us to come on, and I still kept running to stage right. And I went up the back steps, and the other male dancer was on the other side waiting for me because now we were late going on. And I just went like this, like, don't go. And we walked down. I walk all the way back. I'm now sweating profusely. My face is like drenched. I walk and I sit down in this chair, and Terry goes, "What happened?" And I'm like, "This scenery thing hit me and I'm really dizzy. And if someone could get me a towel, that'd be great because I can't stop sweating." He goes, "It's not sweat." And they turned the chair around to the full length mirror, and I was just covered like Carrie, just blood going.
Oh my gosh.
So between shows, I go up to the medical area of the casino and they give me 8 stitches.
8 stitches?
Yeah. And I thought I was going to be like, nothing's keeping me down, man. The show goes on. So I came down, I got cleaned up. I did the opening number of the second show. Walked off
you didn't.
Yes. And then I walked off stage, and the stage manager, Julian, was standing there. And I said, "Nope, done. can't see, triple vision, head pounding. Like, I can't do this. Like, I wanted to really get through the whole second show, and it was like, this isn't going to happen.
We always say that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've worked injured or even sang with laryngitis.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
But isn't it funny how it's there when you need it? Like, it is something. I mean, I've had the flu really bad, and then you hit the stage, and for the next 3 to 6 minutes, however long the number is, you feel amazing and you do it. It's like your body, your mind blocks all of that away. And then you walk off stage, and within 2 seconds, you're just miserable again. But it's like your mind kicks in and says, I have to do this now.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing. You know, entertainment is one of the most, I think it's one of the most amazing jobs, because every time you go to your job, you have to put out 110% energy. And, you know, anything could have happened during the day, anything at all, but you have a job to do. And your job is always on the holidays, like entertaining everybody else. You know, you have to leave your family in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner because you have to go do a show. And maybe you couldn't even eat because you couldn't have fit in the costumes. You know, there's a, right?
You make the plate for after the show. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices, and it's also very fun, right? Everybody's birthday, we bring in the cakes and do all the things. I mean, there's so much content that we could do a show on. But yeah, you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, it's an amazing career, and we're truly blessed to have it. And I'm glad that you're, you know, progressing it and taking it to the next level. And I can't wait to see all the performers, because listen, you've been in this business and you know so many performers, and you're doing it like a variety show where it's all different kinds of people. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, all the things that you come up with.
And it feels like it's reinvigorated my passion again. You know, I was kind of, before COVID, I've been doing this interesting mix out here of producing, directing, and choreographing original musical theater productions. And it's fun and it's interesting, but sometimes you rehearse for 3 to 4 months so you can do 6, maybe 9 performances, and then it's over. And so I've just been feeling a little lost lately. So it was really, this has brought some, I'm energized again. I feel like I've got something to be really passionate as far as entertainment goes again. So it's a blessing for me as well.
So again, you know, a lot of the people that I'm speaking to are, you know, are telling me about things that they've created during COVID. So, you know, we have to look at this as like, it's not all bad. You know, there's always a reason things happen, and we can have growth from this tragedy, you know, and hopefully come out with better things when this is all over, and have a new passion for doing it also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Anybody that wants to follow Headliners, you can go to facebook.com/HDLNRS, no vowels, HDLNRS on Facebook. That's our page. On Instagram, it's HDLNRS_virtual_show. But those pages are linked together. But please follow the page. You can check out all the talent from the last show. And then within the next week or two, I'll start adding content about what the next show will be, including ticket links and all of that kind of stuff, and giving people an idea of who's going to be performing. So
fantastic. I'll put all the links underneath this video. So make sure that you follow Gary and follow Headliners and follow yobizshowbiz.com, and On the Edge of Entertainment. Please subscribe and like. And thank you so much for being with us, Gary. I loved talking to you.
Thank you too. I appreciate it so much. And I'm so happy for you and what you're doing right now.